You boys be quiet down there!
Hey, this is Mr. Jakes from Basement Brothers. This year I decided to make the trek out from central Tokyo and attend the Tokyo Game Show after a 4-year absence. It should be interesting to see how things have changed since 2013 and what kind of treats the game companies have in store for me this time. Getting off the train at Kaihin Makuhari Station, the crowds were in full force, just as I expected. There were plenty of signs to keep us excited on the walk to the Makuhari Messe Convention Hall. I should mention right away that most of the footage I got was pretty poor, and there were lots of important games and displays that I didn't manage to get any good footage of. So this is going to be a short video showing some of the things I saw and my thoughts on them. This is by no means intended to be exhaustive TGS coverage, and I apologize in advance if I neglect to mention any particular games you're excited to hear more about. So anyway, let's get started. The first building of the convention hall was almost all mobile and online games, which I had absolutely zero interest in. The first real game company's pavilion I finally got to see was Koei Tecmo, in the back of the building. The two games they were featuring when I was there were Fire Emblem Warriors, which is a Dynasty Warriors game using the Nintendo Fire Emblem license, and Sengoku Musou 8, which will be called Dynasty Warriors 9 in English. The Dynasty Warriors games are always a good seller for Koei Tecmo, and it's not hard to see why they are resting on their laurels so much with this series again this year. Into the next building, and we get to what was probably the largest pavilion, the Sony Pavilion. They had quite a lot of large displays and props for Monster Hunter World, which is looking quite gorgeous and expansive. With a more unified worldwide release compared to previous games planned for next January, Sony hopes the Monster Hunter series will finally start making big waves worldwide like the series always has in Japan. There were a lot of kiosks set up to play Gran Turismo Sport. This game was first announced way back in 2015, and next month it looks like fans will finally get to own the first Gran Turismo game for the PS4. Sony probably created the biggest social media buzz of the show with their unconventional display for Detroit Become Human. These actors were put behind a glass case and trained to act as much like androids as possible. The makeup and costumes helped to enhance the Uncanny Valley effect. Many people were so convinced that they actually thought these actors were robots when posting about them on social media. Oh yeah, and you could play a demo of the game too if you were willing to wait. Only got a glimpse of Dragon Ball FighterZ before they made me stop filming! On to Square Enix. They have on offer a new Dissidia fighting game and every Final Fantasy XV related game you could imagine. The most space was dedicated to Final Fantasy XV: A New Empire, which is an online multiplayer game for Android and iOS. Just how much of TGS is dedicated to mobile games this year anyway? I have a bad feeling about this. On to Sega and Atlus. The biggest games featured were Yakuza Kiwami 2 and Hokuto ga Gotoku is a Yakuza game based on the Fist of the North Star franchise. There was also a showing for Sonic Forces, A Certain Magical Virtual On, Hatsune Miku Project Diva Future Tone DX, and the latest episode of Phantasy Star Online 2. Hi Sonic. Moving on to Capcom, we've got Resident Evil 7 Gold Edition, which includes the latest DLC for the game called Not a Hero. Hey Snake, you can't be here in Resident... Oh, actually this kinda looks right. They also had a shooting range in case you wanted to test your real-life marksmanship. No, those aren't real guns. This is a game show in Japan, don't be stupid. There's something for fans of classic Capcom games as well. Here's Rockman Classics Collection 1 and 2. Time for Konami. Metal Gear Survive is the first game in the franchise to be developed without Hideo Kojima, and takes more of a survival horror focus than previous games. They also had some interesting looking kiosks in order to play the freshly announced Zone of the Enders game for PlayStation VR. There was a showing for Western developed games too, as you would imagine, but there was surprisingly little on Assassin's Creed Origins. Here you could line up and get a free Monster Energy drink, and then get your picture taken with Bayek and his close friends, Senu and the Monster Energy Drink girls. Step aside, girls, these cosplayers don't want you in their picture. And here's the other Western developed game series I usually end up playing, Need for Speed. Famitsu Magazine has been a part of TGS since way back in the day, so I figured their booth deserved an appearance here. And I had to show you one of the most creative cosplayers I've ever seen. This guy was dressed as Mario with a Nintendo Switch for a head, with a working Nintendo Switch inside. He was able to use his controller to play the games on his screen, or even hand other people the controller and let them play too. If you happen to have come across the world to see TGS, then you might as well buy an official t-shirt or a towel to take home. Now to give you my honest opinions. There are a few reasons why I haven't gone to TGS for the last 3 years. Firstly, you have to wait in line for ungodly amounts of time if you want to actually play any of the popular games. Many of them had waiting times of 2 hours or more, and in many cases you can't even get a spot in line without getting a pass for that particular game early in the morning. So if you ever plan to visit TGS, make sure you temper your expectations and don't expect to get to play a lot of the games. Me, I didn't play a single game at all this time. There were probably a few less popular games I could have played if I wanted to, as I have in previous years, but nowadays I usually prefer to just concentrate on looking at the different displays and stages each company has to offer. Another reason I haven't been to TGS in a while is because I am kind of an old fart when it comes to video games. It seems that each year there are less and less games I'm actually interested in. For example, when I was here in 2013, I was surprised that they had a few pavilions for some of the larger smartphone game makers. Since then, things have gotten much worse. It was probably hard to tell from this video since I pretty much only showed console games, but trust me, probably about half the event space this year was dedicated to mobile games. Now, I'm sure that some of you have some games that you enjoy playing on your smartphones, but personally I would prefer that they kept mobile games out of TGS. There's already another game show in Tokyo called SGF, the Smartphone Game Festival. Why not just keep the smartphone games there and reserve TGS for console and maybe PC games? I guess the reason why they don't is because not everyone is an old fart like me, and there is actually plenty of overlap between the audiences for console and smartphone games. Finally, and maybe this reason is really old news and goes without saying, but the Japanese game market is no longer what it was back in its heyday. There was a time decades ago when almost all the biggest and most popular video games were developed in Japan. Game magazine editors flocked to Tokyo in order to get the latest scoop on all the upcoming games and consoles. Nowadays, however, TGS seems almost like an afterthought compared to E3. Even the larger Japanese developers make most of their big announcements at E3 rather than TGS. Again, this has been the case now for decades, so probably this goes without saying. All of that being said, there is still one Japanese developer which followers of this channel probably know I am crazy about, and still follow almost religiously. I love Nihon Falcom so much that I've decided to make a separate video about their showing at TGS this year. I plan to have it up very soon, so please like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you back here then. This has been Mr. Jakes from TGS 2017, signing off for now.